Cover letters tend to be the bane of everyone's existence. We hear employers, half of them say they won't even look at you if you don't have a cover letter on there to kind of go more in depth. Others say they don't care if you have a cover letter, and a cover letter can even be a negative. If it's asked for or is an option, we suggest doing one. If you go in to sign up online at a job and there's not a spot for a cover letter at all, it's kind of a 50-50 shot. And that depends on the employer. Maybe if you can find someone at the company to ask if they know if they're looking for cover letters or not, to decide if you want to write and send one. But if there's not an option or a space for a cover letter at all, it's up to you. You may not necessarily have to write one for that company. If they're not giving you a place for it, chances are they don't want one. But if there is any option for one, we suggest sending it. And really, the best way I can explain a cover letter is that professional summary I showed you from the resume. It's that on steroids. Instead of having 5 or 6 lines, you've got 3 paragraphs to really sell yourself and give those extra details. Another good metaphor I like to use for that is your resume is like you outlining a drawing, and your cover letter is you coloring it in. It lets you show off some writing skills, it lets you be more specific and really show off why you want to be for that job. The one thing you want to be careful of when writing that is to not go off track. Everything from the cover letter to your resume needs to be designed so that you are selling yourself to that company and why you should be hired. If you get off of that, it's extra fluff or distraction that you don't need and could hurt you in your chances of getting that job. So, under a cover letter, basically, the first paragraph is you introducing yourself. Who you are. If you know someone in the company, if you're going to name drop somebody, this is where you want to do it in this first paragraph of your cover letter. Where you kind of saw the opportunity and maybe a little bit of why it excites you. Then you're going to tie that into the second paragraph, which is going to be why you should hire me and those different skills and things you bring. That's your bread and butter, and that's how you're going to convince someone they should hire you. The last paragraph, sometimes doesn't even get to a full paragraph, is what brought you to the company and a call to action of some kind. Giving them contact information, how to reach out to you, why they should reach out to you. You can kind of play with this one a little bit, but this last paragraph is kind of that, here's how you get a hold of me, get a hold of me, kind of call to action. And then we have this set up, a cover letter, we suggest setting it up as an actual letter. Even though it's being sent in or emailed, this kind of gives it that extra flair of, this is a letter I'm sending you. Then finally we get down to who to address it to. This has always been a question and a kind of fight with people. Sometimes it's easy. The name of the hiring manager or director is on the job description or quickly found on the website. Put it to them. Now let's say there is no hiring manager posted anywhere and you can't really find in the company website who's doing the hiring for that department. Now you have a few choices. You can look and find who the HR director is. They might be involved in it, and they're always kind of a safe bet to address it to. If you know what department in the company you're being hired for, you can always put the head or director of that group. You want to do your best to avoid a very generic name though. Dear hiring manager. You want to make this as personal as possible. I've had students and suggested students to go as far as to reach out to a company you're about to apply to. Say, hey, I'm super excited, I want to apply to this position. Could you tell me who the hiring director is, or at least the first name of, or last name of, so that I can address my cover letter to them.
That one thing can do it for you. Because nobody reads those letters that say to occupant or to resident. Who reads those, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chances are that it might get it ignored.
Mm-hmm.
The call itself will distinguish you from a lot of other candidates in the position. They're like, oh, this name came across. They called and asked about who was doing this so they could do the cover letter. Shows initiative. Shows that you really care about this job and the potential opportunity it gives you. That call alone can make a big difference. I've also had companies say, sorry, we can't tell you that. I think they said under legal pretense or they couldn't give out names of employees, something like that. And if that happens, then go, who do you think would best to address it to then? So maybe you can't give me a specific name, but is there an HR manager or someone public I can address it to? Sometimes they'll continue to blow you off and ignore you. If that happens, you've just got to do kind of your best guess. That comes down to, again, there's no magic answer or something you can put. Just do your best to avoid specifics, and even if you label it to the wrong person, if it's an actual person at the company in a higher position, they'll know you looked.
Well, and besides it, like if I get a resume that's addressed to me and I know who's hiring, I'm going to pass it along, right? It's a real person, so.
Exactly.
Yep.
They'll know to be like, oh,
Yeah.
I know they're hiring over here. There's that.
Yeah.
Another small thing that none of this guarantees you a job or position, but every time you add a little bit of this might help, this could help, this could do this, there's a lot more chances of one of those catching someone and moving your name forward past someone else. Especially if it's an internship position and a bunch of interns are applying, but they're all sending in generic first kind of resumes, as I call them, that first try at a resume, if you've not had someone look at it or work on it. It's immediately putting you higher up in that pile. So you're not fighting against 100 other people who send in generic resumes. You're fighting against the other 2 or 3 that did the extra work and effort to do this kind of thing. Kind of puts you at the top of the pile, and then you're just in what I kind of call a fair fight. Because 1, you differentiate yourself from everyone else, and 2, you are going into more detail and telling them what you bring to the table and what you're doing. And most don't do that off the bat naturally. So this is all just to help your chances and to give you that fighting chance at least an interview, which is its own monster that we can talk about. But that interview is where you're really going to show more detail. You're going to be able to tell your full story and get a read on the person you're being hired by to better do that. So sometimes I get students that are like, I want to add more to my resume because I want to make sure they know about this. Or I want to make sure like I'm really proud of this, which is good, and those are the kind of things you want on your resume. But if you start running out of room, you have to start choosing what's more important, what's going to get you to the interview, where then you can tell them about that other thing, or what you're excited about, or what this means. So it's always kind of the different pieces and what I've heard and what we work on to make sure you know what you're walking into.